There's no way I'm going to try this case or have any further proceedings, or I have to see you for one further step. Set for the very hearing next week.
Let's talk about Bweb, a man who seems to have made the courtroom his second home, but not for the reasons you'd want. On a Wednesday, that would go down as another entry in his long list of legal troubles. Webb found himself facing charges for an oddly specific crime, third-degree assault. His weapon of choice? Saliva. Yep, you heard that right. Webb decided to spit right into the face of a Fayette County corrections officer, and just like that, a trial was set into motion. The prosecution kept it short and sweet, calling only 4 witnesses before resting their case. When it was Webb's turn to speak, he opted for the silent treatment, telling Judge Kimberly Bunnell he had no interest in taking the stand. No witnesses showed up to vouch for him either. Not that anyone was likely lining up for that job. Ordinarily, this is where things would transition into the penalty phase, but Webb had other plans. He decided to skip ahead and plead guilty to another charge, being a persistent felony offender. A classy move, right? By pleading guilty, Webb took what would have been a 5-year sentence for the spitting incident and turned it into a decade behind bars. And that's not all. This 10-year term will be added on top of his other, shall we say, achievements. A 15-year sentence for assaulting another officer, and a hefty 50 years for the murder of Bria Runevich, his estranged girlfriend. Oh, and let's not forget the felony convictions for wanton endangerment and theft in Menifee County. But even with all that, the law says he can't serve more than 70 years in total. A curious silver lining if there ever was one. But back to the spitting. The jury, made up of 8 women and 4 men, needed just 50 minutes to decide Webb was guilty of that charming act. Corrections Officer Roy Greenman took the stand and described how Webb's spit landed around my forehead and upper nose area. All this went down after Webb's cell was searched for contraband, specifically broken compact discs that could have been turned into makeshift weapons. The search turned up nothing, and Webb seemed to cooperate until he didn't. With his hands cuffed behind his back, he whipped around and let loose with the spit. Seems like for Webb, if there's a wrong way to do things, he's going to find it. Next stop, Ann Arbor, Michigan, where a courtroom showdown is brewing. But this one's a bit different. We're in a virtual arraignment hearing with 31-year-old Lawrence Sagona, who's charged with stalking and aggravated stalking. His story began 6 weeks earlier at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, where he allegedly met a woman and decided that boundaries were more like suggestions. Sagona reportedly started showing up unannounced, bringing gifts, and just hanging around outside her home. Romantic, right? Not quite. Sagona insists they were in a relationship. The woman, however, didn't get that memo and denied any involvement. With things getting uncomfortable, she secured a personal protective order against him. And Sagona? Well, he's no stranger to trouble. He'd just finished parole for a home invasion and firearm conviction in a nearby county, but that didn't seem to faze him. Despite the protective order, Sagona allegedly kept contacting her. Soon enough, he found himself arrested again, this time facing a felony charge for aggravated stalking. Today, Sagona appears before Magistrate Alicia Finn for what should be a straightforward arraignment. But Lawrence Sagona seems to have missed the memo about courtroom decorum. The judge lays out the details. Multiple instances of Sagona lurking in the parking lot of the woman's apartment, bringing unwanted gifts and popping up at her AA meetings. He's been repeatedly told by both the victim and the police that his presence is not welcome.
Many contacts with Mr. Sagona standing in the parking lot of the apartment building where Ms. lives, bringing her gifts, showing up at AA meetings where she's attending. He's been told by her and by the police that he is not welcome at her place.
But the judge, unamused, warns him. Sagona briefly simmers down, but only for a moment.
Has the ability to post a $25,000 cash surety bond.
But he's back at it again.
Hospital.
Okay, now we're done. So I'll see you again tomorrow. I'm not going to arraign you because
No, this is you're gonna listen to me.
Get out.
No, you.
Okay.
Where's the nerd? Don't boxing me right now. Whoa.
Okay, the defendant has refused to be arraigned by using profanity directed at a magistrate We will try again tomorrow. In the meantime, he's being held without bond until he can be arraigned.
Oh, God!
Eventually, cooler heads, or perhaps just tired ones, prevailed. Sagona pled guilty to the lesser stalking charge. The aggravated stalking charge was dropped, and after serving just under 3 months in jail, he was released with credit for time served and slapped with 60 months of probation. But here's the catch. If he so much as thinks about contacting the victim again, it's a guaranteed ticket back to jail for at least a year. Before diving into the next case, we encourage you to take 1 second and subscribe to our channel if you like the content. Now let's jump over to Australia, where we find Daniel James Nicholson, a man who decided that his day in court needed a little more drama. The father of 4 from O'Sullivan Beach first appeared in court on September 15, 2020. Nicholson, a 35-year-old with a history of weapons charges, found himself at the Christie's Beach Magistrates Court in Adelaide, hoping for a break. He was angling for bail, but the court had other plans, and when his bail was revoked, things took a nosedive in no time.
I revoke bail. I revoke bail. No, you can stop.
What's going on, Father?
Take a seat. Take the seat.
Miss, please, miss.
Please, miss. I'll tell you what, please, miss.
CCTV captured Nicholson in a moment that could have been straight out of a comedy sketch, if it weren't so serious. He's seen standing behind a clear partition, when suddenly he decides it's showtime. As a sheriff's officer enters the dock, Nicholson springs into action, climbing onto a table like he's in a parkour competition. He starts swatting at the officer, who's now joined by another trying to keep things under control. But Nicholson isn't done with his acrobatics. He stumbles and then vaults over the partition, landing on his knees on a nearby table. It's quite the spectacle, until a quick-thinking police prosecutor, seeing this chaotic ballet unfold, grabs him and throws him to the floor. And just when it looks like the curtain is falling on this performance, Nicholson attempts another escape. In the ensuing scuffle, one officer ends up with an injured foot that later required a moon boot for 8 weeks, while another officer is left with a clicking jaw and a headache. Eventually, the officers manage to subdue Nicholson and escort him back through the open door, bringing his impromptu act to an abrupt end. During a hearing, the judge didn't mince words, calling Nicholson's escape attempt impulsive, violent, and forceful. The court heard about his anger and impulse control issues, and his track record of not exactly being best friends with court orders. Unsurprisingly, Nicholson was once again refused bail, with the court emphasizing the need for a jail term that would protect the community and reflect the seriousness of his offenses. Nicholson pled guilty to attempting to escape custody and 2 counts of recklessly causing harm to emergency workers. His defense tried to soften the blow, painting him as a remorseful father of 4 with a long-standing battle against drug use, pleading for a suspended sentence or home detention. The court wasn't having it. Nicholson was sentenced to 21 months in prison, with parole eligibility after 1 year, plus a $320 fine for the original gun charge. Next, we're back in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for a civil hearing that feels more like a reality TV episode than a day in court. Attorney Ali Mubu has filed a motion on behalf of his clients, Merrill and Juan Guerra, to set aside a default judgment. Their tenant, 49-year-old Autumn Edwards, is suing them for $6,500, claiming faulty plumbing in the home she rented from them damaged her property. Now here's where things get messy. The Guerras had 21 days to respond to the lawsuit, but they decided not to bother. Why? They thought the whole thing was fake, and since they didn't respond, the court issued a default judgment in favor of Edwards. Judge Kirk Tabby reviews the situation, acknowledging that the Guerras didn't realize the summons was real, and noting,
they have described why they weren't sure it was a real summons, so they didn't file their answer. So we give people a little bit of deference if they don't understand something. What do you have to say?
But Edwards isn't having any of that. She jumps in, insisting.
Bottom line is, she was served. She was very irate while reading it. It was very legible. When she got it, she read it all the way to the bottom. She looked me in my face and said, "I'll just see you in court," real nasty. I don't have any reason to lie. And I believe that this default judgment should stand.
She's clearly not here to play games and wants that default judgment to stick. Judge Tabby, however, sees things differently. He admits he wasn't sure what laws or issues were being argued, saying,
I looked at it. I wasn't clear what laws or issues were being argued. There was no lease attached. I wasn't sure if this was a landlord-tenant issue. I wasn't sure if this was a damages issue. It just isn't clear what you're suing for. So I'm granting the motion to set aside the default, which means we can have the dispute discussed and figure out what issues are there for trial and what issues might resolve.
to sort it all out, he grants the motion to set aside the default judgment, meaning they'll have to actually go to trial to figure things out. Edwards does not take this decision well. She fires back.
I mean, what are we disputing? You already ruled it in their favor now, and you're probably gonna do it in the future. So what's the point? What is all this for now?
Excuse
You
me?
gonna sit up here and let him
Excuse
lie?
me, Miss Edwards, what are you talking about? Are you claiming that I'm, you don't understand. You know, you just wait a minute. You wait a minute.
21 days for me, you to do my
Stop talking.
Man,
Stop talking.
The judge, a bit taken aback, asks if she's accusing him of bias. The tension hits a boiling point, but before he can finish, Edwards cuts him off and abruptly leaves the call. The judge, trying to keep his cool, remarks,
She's alleging now that somehow I have made a ruling in favor of them, and she doesn't like it, so she blanks out. So you have to come back with your camera. We're in a hearing.
Moments later, Edwards is back on camera, but the conflict doesn't stop there. As the judge tries to clarify his ruling, Edwards continues to interrupt, insisting,
yeah, I heard you.
I don't even understand. No, first of all, you can't overtalk me.
I'm
I will
talking
give
to
you
her.
no, stop. I will give you a chance to talk when
I
I
don't got nothing else
talk.
to say.
Stop!
I don't have anything else
Stop.
to say. You
Stop.
I don't have nothing to say.
Stop! Stop! You have to stop interrupting and being so absolutely rude and condescending. And if you leave, this case is dismissed.
and just like that, Edwards steps away again, leaving the courtroom in disarray. But then enters Nettie Carter, Edwards' friend, who steps in to relay the judge's instructions. The judge makes it clear. But Edwards has already decided she's done with the whole thing. The judge, seeing no other option, dismisses the case. After a brief discussion with Mr. Mubu, the judge officially rules to dismiss the case. But the drama doesn't end there.
Abandoning her case. You move to dismiss?
Yes, sir. Move to dismiss.
Okay, case dismissed. Please file an order.
Yes, sir.
Wait on. Oh, prejudice motherfucker.
Okay, you're in contempt of court.
For contempt of court, the judge sentences Edwards to 2 days in jail, wrapping up this courtroom spectacle with a twist that's sure to leave everyone talking. Next up, we have Dale Roy Greenman, a man who turned a simple bond hearing into an unexpected courtroom drama. Greenman is facing theft charges after he allegedly decided to treat a 7-Eleven like his own personal shopping spree. According to the allegations, Greenman casually walked into the store, grabbed a pack of cigarettes, a big lighter, and a Gatorade. But when he got to the cashier, instead of pulling out his wallet, he pulled an exit strategy, walking right out the door without paying a single cent. Now, normally this would be a run-of-the-mill shoplifting case, but there's a twist. Greenman already has a record, including a charge for tampering with evidence in a separate case. And that little detail could turn this misdemeanor into a felony. The moment this is mentioned in court, Greenman completely loses his cool. He erupts into a bizarre 30-second rant, shouting something about,
That's horse. You do whatever the you want.
Excuse me?
My name is Mr. Greenman.
I'm the federal witness of the United States federal government. I demand some respect, you. Let's get a jam around along y'all did and figure out what you're
All right,
doing.
he can be removed once y'all get him out.
Now.
The judge, clearly having no patience for this outburst, orders Greenman to be removed from the courtroom. And if that wasn't enough, his bond skyrockets from $250 to a cool $1,000. Greenman's little outburst just cost him a lot more than a pack of cigarettes and a Gatorade. Let's take a trip to Jefferson Circuit Court in Louisville, Kentucky, where we find 36-year-old Adam Satley in a bond hearing for drug charges. Satley, standing before Circuit Judge Olu Stevens, is already in a bit of hot water. Things aren't looking good, and off camera, you hear,
Your objections notice overruled. Motion's granted.
The bad news lands hard, and Satley's attorney whispers a warning for him to keep calm. But it's clear from Satley's expression that calm is not on the agenda today.
Taken into custody.
Judge Stevens announces that Satley's bond is revoked, sending him straight back into custody. And just like that, Satley's new year is off to a rocky start. The frustration builds, and Satley yells out in anger.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now the new year starts. That's all the cases that I have.
The judge, ready to move on, suddenly pauses.
Miss Alvey, before you go, I mean, Sheriff, can you indulge me 1 second?
Yes, sir, of course.
Can you knock on the door and tell the sheriff to bring Mr. Is that guy? Satterley? Bring him back. You just tell the sheriff to bring him back. Oh, Brad, you still have Satterley?
I do.
You bring him back.
Bring him back out?
I apologize. Just give me 1 minute. It won't even take that.
The room freezes for a moment as the judge calls for Satley to be brought back. It's like the courtroom equivalent of rewinding a tape to replay a scene you just can't believe. When Satley is back in front of him, Judge Stevens calmly asks,
Is there something that you wish to say to me?
No, it's my brother.
Oh, was that to your brother?
Yes,
Because I
sir.
heard you say a racial epithet.
No, I didn't mean it like that.
Oh, you didn't mean it like
No.
that? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court for having said that. And you don't speak those words in here.
Yes,
and
sir.
that word particularly,
Yes,
you
sir.
don't use that word. I'm going to give you 60 days for having used that word. Hold you in contempt right now for having done it in this courtroom. It's disrespectful. Don't ever do it again. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Ms. Allen.
The sheriff nods in agreement, and Satley's sentence just got a little longer. But Judge Stevens then throws a lifeline. If Satley is willing to apologize for the slur, the judge will reduce the 60-day sentence to just 1 day. Satley, seeing a glimmer of hope, takes the offer.
Yes, sir. I apologize. It wasn't intended for you. I was mad at my brother, that's all it was.
Well, you can have a seat. I'll say this, that what you said was a racial epithet that I don't know how it could be directed at your brother, but at any rate, I accept your apology.
Thank you, sir.
And just like that, a potentially lengthy stay in jail is shortened to just a day, thanks to a quick apology and a bit of courtroom mercy. Next up, we head to Las Vegas, Nevada, for an arraignment hearing that's more like a legal sparring match. Joshua Martinez, facing charges for driving with a suspended driver's license, has made the bold choice to represent himself in court. Confident, or perhaps overconfident, in his legal knowledge, Martinez decides to quiz the judge on a few points, diving headfirst into legalese. He starts off.
And is there a injured party or damage to property here?
It's charge brought by the city of Las Vegas, sir.
Okay, so the city's the victim in the case?
The city is the charging part.
So they're the victim.
At this point, the judge has had enough of Martinez's attempt to play courtroom chess. She lays down the law.
I am in charge of this courtroom and you're going to stop it.
We are in charge of the court.
This back and forth isn't flying with the judge, who swiftly decides to show Martinez exactly who's in charge. She orders him to be removed from the courtroom. 20 minutes later, Martinez is brought back in, presumably for a chance to apologize, but he remains stubborn, refusing to back down. As a result, he's sentenced to 15 days in jail for contempt of court. And in a final twist of irony, Martinez's original charge for driving without a license, that one gets dismissed. So while he managed to dodge the initial charge, his courtroom antics earned him a different sort of stay, 15 days behind bars. Now we find ourselves in Wichita, Kansas, for the sentencing of Michael Gaines, convicted of battery against a police officer. As the judge begins to address Gaines about his actions, things quickly take a turn for chaos.
Words were that you deliberately were hawking up.
I didn't hawk up no saliva, okay? That's and you're gonna believe those lies. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't hawk up no saliva. You're gonna believe a lie because they wearing uniform.
Gaines, clearly frustrated, interrupted the judge with a barrage of words, but the judge attempts to restore some order. However, Gaines clearly does not back down and also fires back again.
It's like evening. You ain't gotta scream at me. You gonna raise your voice at me?
Oh my God.
Raise your voice at me, I raise my voice at you. You just in a row.
The courtroom is now a tense standoff with emotions running high and insults being hurled back and forth. Despite the commotion, the judge maintains composure and tries to regain control. Eventually, Gaines is gently escorted out of the room, still brimming with anger. And when the dust settles, the judge delivers the verdict. Michael Gaines is sentenced to 13 years. Thanks for watching. We have witnessed some intense courtroom drama today, with tempers flaring and unexpected twists reminding us that justice isn't always straightforward. But here's a question. Should those who cause chaos in court face harsher punishments? Or do you believe in giving everyone a chance to redeem themselves? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. And don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for Part 5, where we dive into even more unbelievable moments from the courtroom.